HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents Make Space for Happiness: How to Stop Attracting Clutter and Start Magnetizing the Life You Want. By Tracy Mccubbin. Read by Tracy Mccubbin. This publication is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is sold with the understanding that the publisher is not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or other professional service. If legal advice or other expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. For Rich, thank you for filling up my life with love. Introduction. Globally, 2020 was a crucible for many people, and for many reasons. For those of us who were fortunate enough to keep our health, we still faced enormous upheaval as we moved our lives indoors and hunkered down. A home that had served as little more than a changing room before the pandemic suddenly became a person's entire world. In my role as a professional organizer and declutterer, I saw my clients in Los Angeles and across the country have a reckoning with their home environments unlike anything we have ever experienced in our lifetime. My assessment: we are in a crisis, a stuff crisis. Whenever I had the occasion to get in my car and quickly zip across Los Angeles during lockdown, I couldn't help but notice that most of the vehicles on the street were UPS, DHL, FedEx, and Amazon. So many Amazon trucks. So many, in fact, that I started to notice that unmarked vans had slapped on Amazon magnets and drivers in orange vests were popping out of them with armloads of packages. Then I started to notice the piles of packages on doorsteps. Piles. Every front stoop looked like a leaning tower of packages. Blue recycle bins were barfing out empty cardboard boxes. When I finally started to work in clients' homes again, I was shocked at the amount of shopping they had done. It looked as if they had rebought everything they had decluttered before, and then some. For many people, having to be stuck at home confronting their disorder, disarray, and excess was a rough awakening. Previously, they could hunt down their keys or their good blouse or the right travel mug and eventually get out the door. They could promise themselves once again that they would deal with their clutter soon. But during the pandemic, they had nothing to do but accept that their homes had become unmanageable. Just like overeating or drinking too much, over-shopping is fun in the moment, but there is always a heavy price to pay later. I thought business for Declutterfly would be slow as lockdown restrictions lifted. Instead, I ended up hiring more employees to help me get my clients' clutter under control, so that bedrooms, garages, and kitchen counters could become offices, so that children could go to school from home, and so that families who used to sit down for a meal once a week could now eat 3 meals a day together and work alongside one another with minimal friction. And that's not to mention helping all the people moving. Aging parents moving in with their adult children to stay safe and help the grandkids. Grown adults moving back in with their parents due to the economic downturn. People deciding it was time to get out of the city and move somewhere quieter. Everyone trying to make big shifts happen quickly was confronted with how much stuff they had and how little they needed. What did helping mean? In some instances, we emptied garages of broken lawnmowers and unused furniture. There was gently used baby gear to pass along. We helped consolidate closets so that one could be converted to an office. We packed up china from credenzas and replaced it with school supplies. But primarily, what people called us for was to deal with the overwhelming excess. The hallway lined with boxes, the closet filled with untouched shopping bags, the kitchen drawers bursting with multiple unused gadgets, the den filled with dusty exercise equipment. Look, we all need things. I own many, many things. I have things I cook with, things I bathe with, things I wear, and things I work with. I even have things that I just like to look at because they make me happy. But when we have excessive amounts, more than our homes can hold, more than we can clean and care for, more than we will ever use, we need to reflect. After being home 24 hours a day for months on end, we have to ask ourselves, how much do we really use? How much stuff do we really need? Let's agree that if we weren't dusting off that treadmill during the pandemic, we are never going to. Despite everything advertisers want us to believe, stuff does not make us healthy or better or more successful. It doesn't give us longevity. It certainly doesn't help the planet. Most importantly, it is scientifically proven that stuff does not make us happy. And your happiness is what I care about. I grew up in California, the daughter of a wonderful man with an intractable hoarding problem. So I saw firsthand the tenacious pull that stuff can have on our psyches. As an adult in Los Angeles, I became a personal assistant known for being able to tackle any organizational challenge. As word spread, my business was born, and Declutterfly is now Los Angeles's premier home organization company. Over many years and after seeing thousands of homes, I started to recognize patterns. Clutter that people couldn't let go of stood directly between how they were living and how they wanted to be living. In my last book, Making Space Clutter-Free, I introduced people to the concept of emotional clutter blocks. My 7 clutter blocks are the mind traps that we easily get stuck in when we're unable to let go of possessions that we don't want, use, or love. Let me explain more. Clutter block number 1, my stuff keeps me stuck in the past, runs us when we hold on tightly to things like old trophies, gifts from exes, and sympathy cards from past acquaintances. This is unhelpful because it signals that our best days are behind us. Clutter block number 2. My stuff tells me who I am, tells us to hang on to clothes and accessories that we don't wear but keep because of the designer label. The clutter keeps us company, and we hold on to the labels and brands that give us false status. Clutter block number 3, the stuff I'm avoiding, is usually the administrative detritus that people allow to pile up rather than dispatch. Notices from the IRS, unsigned power of attorney forms, documents that just need a good shredder. Being a grown-up means facing the thing and dealing with it. Clutter block number 4, my fantasy stuff for my fantasy life. Blocks against letting go of stuff we buy to magically think ourselves into a life we think we should be living. It could be anticipatory maternity clothes, suits for a job we haven't applied for, or the sport we are somehow going to take up. Clutter block number 5, I'm not worth my good stuff, stops us from using wedding presents, tag-laden evening wear, or the good candles and the nice soap that sit waiting for a special day that may never come. Clutter block number 6, trapped with other people's stuff, sticks people with inherited clothes and furniture they don't like, never wanted, and cannot release because it feels disrespectful to those who have passed. And last, clutter block number 7, the stuff I keep paying for, keeps us from setting free a purchase mistake. We hold on to something we don't need, want, or use because we paid a lot for it. This leads to a compounded mistake of paying for storage or turning rooms in our home into storage depots. There is a reason why storage is a billion-dollar industry, and yet almost nothing in those units is worth the cost of storing them. What we found was that when we focused on healing the underlying emotional need, my clients and readers were suddenly able to let go of stuff that had plagued them for years. Best of all, they were able to start living the way they had always wanted to before their stuff got in the way. At the end of the day, it's how you live that I care the most about. Not rainbow sorting your shoes or decanting all your beans. I want your keys where you can grab them, permission slips in an outbox, and your vegetable peeler visible when you open the drawer. I want your home to be a tool that enables you to do the things you want to do, like get ready for work, spend time with your family, or relax. I certainly don't want you to constantly confront piles of stuff that make you feel bad. Making Space Clutter-Free came out in 2019, and soon after, my inbox and Instagram were flooded with pictures of once cluttered homes transformed into decluttered, useful spaces that set people up to be living the lives they wanted. But then, I noticed something new. Some of my clients and followers healed their blocks and released their excess stuff. But then, they kept buying. I started to think back over my mavens of multiples, or clients and community members who acquire excess in one or two categories. For example, wellness products on reoccurring subscriptions, or more pantry staples than anyone will ever need, even during a pandemic or a zombie apocalypse. I realized that there were patterns there too. Patterns that revealed an underlying emotional need that made people keep buying things they didn't want, but encouraged them to buy things they didn't need. Our possessions fall into two categories, wants and needs. The needs are tools that make our lives simpler. A bed to sleep in, a frying pan to cook with, or a basic car to get us to work. And then there are the luxuries, which either elevate the tools or are things that we don't need but give us an emotional lift. Art on our walls, the 10th pair of black pants, or a fancier car to get us to work in style. Where we get into trouble is when we find ourselves burdened by stuff. Buying too much stuff, spending money we don't have on stuff, or thinking we have a right to stuff that is more than we truly need. We are all vulnerable to these traps for multiple reasons we will cover in depth. The goal of this book is to help you see if you are using your stuff to fill holes in your heart, head, or soul. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to give all your stuff away or stop shopping for the rest of the year. But I am going to help you become aware of why we shop. And with that awareness, how to change our behaviors and find fulfillment in healthier ways. By getting to the root of this hidden scourge, we can redirect those emotional and financial resources towards real goals like true connection, free time, and self-confidence. In this book, I'm going to introduce you to what I call the 7 emotional clutter magnets. These are the empty parts of us that desperately want to attract one of the 7 important feelings: purpose, love, connection, wisdom, confidence, self-respect, and ease. These are the feelings that make us excited to get out of bed in the morning. And when they're missing in our lives, we actively try to pull them in or magnetize them, if you will. But sometimes these internal magnets get flipped and started pulling in stuff instead, as though the stuff could be a replacement for those feelings. This may work for a few minutes or hours. Like on days when you get to work too early knowing you have to stay late, and you convince yourself that a candy bar is just the break you need instead of an actual day off. Or how we grab a glass of wine to feel momentarily more relaxed, but that one glass or 3 isn't the solution to chronic stress. In both those examples, we are magnetizing a thing, the candy bar or wine, to fill an emotional need instead of being honest with ourselves about a deeper issue. We will see chapter by chapter how overbuying never solves a clutter magnet. The pull of an activated magnet is not a well that can be filled, but an emotional void that needs positive emotion to counter it. I often imagine these giant cartoon magnets in my clients' homes just sending out magnetic waves, drawing handbags and power tools and kitchen gizmos to them from across the universe, forever, until we turn the magnet off. We are going to turn your clutter magnets off by first identifying the emotional holes that we are trying to fill, and then, chapter by chapter, redirect that powerful pull towards stuff into deeply and sustainably rewarding parts of life. You'll learn how to stop magnetizing date night outfit clutter and instead cultivate the love you really want to feel. Or stop magnetizing status symbols and learn to feel self-respect. All of which will cumulatively lead to a much happier emotional landscape. When we cultivate habits that nurture us and bring lasting joy, we can break these unhelpful patterns once and for all. During the pandemic, we all peered into each other's homes like never before. Whether it was the boss zooming in from her bedroom or the nation TikToking from their kitchen, we saw how other people are living, and it often wasn't pretty. But I have been here for the last 15 years, intimately facing people's inability to maintain a functional relationship with their stuff. Clutter is not a superficial problem. It's an emotional issue that requires an astute solution to help people attain life goals. Whether you want a greater sense of purpose, more social connection, or buckets of love, we are going to look at how you want to feel as you move through your day and why overbuying hasn't made you feel that way. Then we'll figure out how to eliminate the clutter. Ultimately, these 8 chapters aren't actually about personal organization. They're a roadmap to your personal fulfillment. I am so excited to go on this journey with you. Chapter 1. Your 7 emotional clutter magnets. Wanna fly? You gotta give up the shit that weighs you down. Toni Morrison. Football fields of new and used clothes. Cargo containers of baby gear. Gymnasiums full of old towels and bed linens. Broken toys, working toys, bicycles, tricycles, and scooters. Books, and more books. I am a professional declutterer, and the amount of stuff I have helped people jettison over 15 years could furnish all the homes in Vermont, maybe twice. And people do need help tackling clutter in their homes. Clutter is tenacious. It builds up slowly, we get used to living with it, and it can feel overwhelming to address. Not only that, but even things we're desperate to let go of just linger. And this can have real consequences on our well-being. A 2017 study published in Current Psychology demonstrates that clutter and procrastination go hand in hand. People procrastinate decluttering, and then the overwhelming presence of the clutter leads to the postponing of other beneficial activities. My superpower is helping you see why you can't let go of the possessions that get in your way, slow you down, and stand between you and the life you want to be living. In this book, I take this idea one step further. I start by examining who brought those possessions into your home. you. No judgments, but so often, my clients look around helplessly like a masked bandit had been bringing things in while they slept. No, you or someone you live with bought or ordered or accepted everything in your home. Take a moment to sit with this. You brought everything into your home. #truth. What's so awesome about this fact, once you've caught your breath, is that you are in the driver's seat. You are in charge of what comes into your life and your home. In this book, we are going to slow down on that part of the clutter cycle, the acquisition cycle, and dismantle it for good. No more ferrying bags to the Goodwill only to watch your house fill right back up again. To break that cycle, though, we need to first understand why we buy things. We may think we need them, but for many of us, the word need is a catch-all term for some unhelpful behavior patterns. Re-examining why we are buying things is critical because healing clutter magnets isn't simple. It's a commitment that requires some deep dives into our habits, our coping mechanisms, the things we attract, and the things we avoid. In order to succeed, we need to first look at what we're up against. Spoiler alert, it's a lot. The history of clutter. For the majority of human history, two things were precious and hard to come by: food and possessions. For thousands of years, we evolved to hoard what we came by when we came by it in anticipation of bad harvests and bad weather. We valued food we could dry or preserve, animal skins to keep us warm or provide shelter, and implements to manipulate the natural world into sustenance. All of it was precious because it was so labor-intensive to produce. Until the invention of candles, there were truly only so many hours in a day. Then, a mere 200 years ago, machines were invented, and everything changed. We take living in a mechanized and technological world for granted, and we forget that this is a recent phenomenon in human history. I was recently rereading Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House on the Prairie to my niece, and I was startled to be reminded of a world in which almost everything was made by your own two hands. Every stick of furniture, every tool and implement. The fabric and needles were bought, but the clothes were hand-sewn, hand-washed, and laid out to dry. Due to the time and effort that went into making each item, no one had more than they truly needed. I bring this up because what happened over the past 200 years is that we got very far away from the concept of need. Generally speaking, we misuse the word entirely. I need new leggings. I need another skillet. I need that $500 hairdryer. Line up the last 10 things you bought. How many of them did you actually need? Even through the 1900s, goods were expensive. If you were alive in the 1970s, you probably remember regularly polishing your shoes or getting your shoes resoled so that they would last longer. You might remember how important your birthday wish list was because you wouldn't be given anything else until the holidays. You might remember darning socks, wearing hand-me-downs, or buying goods on layaway. We learned skills to care for our stuff because it was valuable. My grandmothers taught me to sew so I could replace a button, make a simple quilt, or even whip up my own prom dress in all its lavender satin, puffy-sleeved 80s splendor. Every summer, I used to go to Arizona to visit Grandma Frida for a few weeks before I went back to school, and we would sew a new quilt for my bed. We would sit on the floor quilting and talking. My other grandmother, MM, taught me how to reaffix loose buttons, mend small holes, and use tape to make a hem. The time I spent sewing and cooking and gardening with my grandmothers was so special. In addition to learning a valuable skill that has served me well, it was also a chance to connect with them and hear their childhood stories. As we stitched, I learned what it was like for them to live through the Depression, 2 world wars, and the advent of everything from the Model T car to the computer. Learning how to sew also taught me how many resources go into one article of clothing, from material to time. It's like the first time you bake anything from scratch. I used to eat scones with wild abandon because they are so stinking delicious. And then I decided to make a batch from scratch. That's when I learned how much butter goes into each scone, hence the deliciousness. And then I realized that scones are not the healthiest thing to eat daily. So now, when I occasionally eat a scone, I am making an informed food choice and enjoy it very, very much. It's the same with sewing clothes. When I became aware of how difficult sewing a button-down shirt from a bolt of fabric and a pattern was, it gave me great appreciation for every piece of clothing I buy. Someone had to mill the fabric and send it to another factory, and more people had to cut and sew the fabric into a shirt. Then that shirt had to be shipped to a store for me to buy. Clothing doesn't magically appear at the mall. In the 1980s, there was yet another seismic shift in consumer culture. Manufacturing moved to Asia, and the cost of goods plummeted. Rapidly, in a world where many Americans anticipated a shift from a 40-hour workweek to a 50 and then 60, investing time to repair things stopped making sense because you could just get a new one for a few dollars. Our time became incredibly constrained, and everything, clothes, home goods, shoes, office supplies, became not just inexpensive, but cheap. Ridiculously cheap. The dwindling price of goods removed an enormous barrier to consumption, and we are living with the consequences of this today. Environmentally, global shipping for every t-shirt, can opener, and dishwasher added an enormous carbon footprint to everything in our homes. Plus, as the cost went down, the quality went with it. The cycle from purchase to landfill became stunningly short. Launched in 2019, the UN now has an alliance of sustainable fashion because the industry is the second largest consumer of water and is responsible for 10% of global carbon emissions, more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. Meanwhile, the average consumer buys 60 more pieces of clothing annually than they did 15 years ago, and they keep them for half as long. The United States alone creates 292.4 million tons of municipal solid waste a year, and landfills are quickly becoming one of the biggest contributors to climate change. Much of this is caused by our overconsumption of cheap consumer goods. From an equity standpoint, very few factory workers in the developing world where these goods are manufactured are paid a living wage, even relative to their cost of living. And lastly, vast swaths of America have turned into manufacturing wastelands. Every country used to have a sense of pride in making something specific to that country. Shoes from Italy, pots and pans from France, cars from the United States. But now that all manufacturing is outsourced to a few countries, we've lost a personal and prideful connection to our things. If you knew the person who made your napkins, you would want to hang on to them longer. You would not, instead, fill your sideboard with anonymous, mass-produced tableware that you can buy and dispose of without a second thought. Everything has a price. Yes, you paid for the $3.99 t-shirt, but I am also paying for your $3.99 t-shirt, as is the woman who made it, the man who shipped it here, and the ocean it glided over. We're all paying in many ways, but if your house feels crowded, inefficient, or unsupportive because it is so crammed full of stuff, then you are paying for that t-shirt again and again. Our homes are so full that we even shell out money for off-site storage units to house the things we think we need. a $10 billion a year.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?